Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you from Me Vision Academy, myself and the old man, presenting a special award of successful leadership to Malik Melamu, and we'll introduce him in a moment. And after doing that, we will definitely go into an interview with him where we talk about leadership. Why is he successful? We know no leader is perfect, and we know every one of the leaders we interview here have not been perfect throughout their careers, so we never try and project that. But the indications are so strongly that these are powerful leaders that we feel they need a recognition of performance, not just the recognition of knowledge that we so often get from universities in different forms. And those are important. But welcome, Malik Melamu. It's good to be with you again.
Thank you, Adrian. It's my pleasure to see you, and good to see that you're still on track. As I say, you're always inspiring us, even when we don't see you. But you keep reminding us what we're here for.
Thank you, Malik. But you're the one who inspires. I just facilitate the inspiration, to be honest. That's what we try and do. Just so that people know that Malik also asked us to activate his app on the right there, just so that might be on your left when you watch, just so that things can be transcribed, our conversation today. So it's wonderful to be here. Malik, you've been with MTN for many years as an executive. I got to know you sometime back when you were the CEO of MTN Sudan. You're still with MTN, and you do things outside of your formal leadership position as well. Is that correct? You're still there? You're still leading for this big brand?
I'm still with MTN. It's actually in July. It was 10 years with MTN. Yeah, been a couple of countries, back in South Africa, and now I'm based out of Dubai, but also supporting in various MENA countries. In still in the same CEO type of role, and yeah, still going strong.
Malik,
Still being challenged.
yes, no doubt. I mean, you clearly have led successfully for many years now. And for us, that means you led yourself successfully. You've led people successfully. We call it others or people. And of course, by implication, you've led organizations successfully, but you've also led society successfully. We'll talk a little bit about that later. You have been very much a proponent of, a missionary for, a passionate influencer when it comes to ethics and good governance and quality leadership on the African continent. But let's look at the award. I'm going to share screen for a moment. Show people this award. There we go. There we go. It is exclusive. It is based on knowing you for some time and watching you and having associated with you before. Those are not always the criteria, but it must be very clear that you have been a successful leader. And it's an exclusive recognition of successful leadership awarded to Malik Melamu for consistently leading self successfully. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm sure you can give us some good gems there. Consistently leading people successfully. We feel very strongly about people. In fact, we actually give a certificate to people caring leaders who, after being authenticated by those who work with them, it's clear that they put people at the very top. It's another recognition of performance kind of award that we give. Also successfully leading as an executive within, amongst others, the MTN group for many years. And the one example is CEO of MTN Sudan and other places. And very importantly, successfully leading society in various impactful roles, like, for example, around ethics and governance and quality leadership on the African continent. And of course, your commitment to mentoring, inspiring future successful leaders. What kind of leaders are we if we don't do that? And of course, signed by one of the co-founders of Me Vision Academy. And well done, Malik. Thank you so much for being this kind of leader out there.
Adrian, thank you so much. I mean, it's really humbling. When I saw your message, yeah, it almost brought a little tear to the eye. But that's why I say you keep inspiring us. It's definitely humbling to be recognized in that way, and it just makes one believe that we just have to keep trying and keep pushing. It's a lovely recognition, especially from yourself and your father, people like you, who I know are very astute in the leadership domain. It's very humbling. That's all I can say. It's very humbling and kind. It's
Um,
heartwarming.
well deserved, Malik. You've gone through a lot of pain in leadership, a lot of grappling, a lot of ups and downs. We can't even imagine if you had to write a detailed book or journal about your life for the last 10, 20, 30 years as a leader. And here we are trying to capture that very briefly. But let's start with you sharing with us some lessons you've learned about leading self. Years ago, I remember a fairly prominent leader saying to me, that's like 20, 30 years ago, saying the first law of leadership is know thyself. And
Yes.
I thought it has to be more complex than that. Please don't give me that nonsense. Years ago. Of course, I've subsequently discovered that it is a very, very, very key component. So tell us what you've learned.
I think, Adrian, I think it is actually the foundation. Um, I guess if you know yourself, and I would say it's a constant journey, but you always have to be looking to know yourself. Um, what makes you tick? What do you want to do in your life? Um, if you don't know that, you could probably be a leader, but you probably plod through it and tread on a lot of toes and maybe at some point be disheartened. Because I often say to people, it is a thankless and a lonely place. There's some days when I'm sitting at my desk and I find I am alone. And
Mm,
if I'm going to solve a problem or find a way forward, I have to talk to myself. So I have to know myself. And what I've learned over time is I'm very clear and proud to be able to say what my weaknesses are, what I cannot do, what I do not know, what I'm not capable of. But I'm also proud to say I know very much what my strengths are, and it stems more from what I know I love, what I wake up for every morning. I think after 30 some years in leadership, I've probably achieved all the little goals and milestones I'd set for myself. And I believe I always have to have an objective. So now, knowing myself, my strengths, it also helps me know what makes me wake up every morning. And when someone asks me what is my objective in life right now, my objective in life is to grow leaders.
mm,
That's it. And it's come over time. It's come over time and it's ingrained. I was really lucky to have a mentor with my first managerial appointment, and he's deceased now. He rest in peace. But what he did to me is he showed me a light, and that light has never gone out in me. I really truly know myself, what I enjoy doing, what I want to do, and I think if you don't know if you don't know who you are, what you like, you cannot lead yourself. You cannot actually. You don't have the right to lead others if you can't lead yourself.
mm,
That's how much I believe. I think you really need to know who you are, um, because being a leader is about being authentic. And if you know yourself, you yourself will be able to say whether I can do this leadership thing or not. And that's important, because what I see all over the place today is people who are in positions, and we throw loosely around the word leader because of position. And we find a lot of people who are just chasing that position and the trappings that come with it. And they're not really true to what leadership is. And it's because they're not leading themselves. They're
mm.
being led by something like the cause for material gain or for power, and that they're not leading themselves. And I think leading yourself is a very deep philosophical thing.
Mm.
It entails, like I said, sometimes talking to yourself, sometimes looking like you're a bit crazy, but I do talk to myself. And
That's quite powerful that you said earlier. You said a few powerful things, and I'm not making notes. I'm trying to make mental
yeah,
notes so that I can engage you more on it. But sometimes you're alone and you have to talk to yourself. And if you don't know yourself, then yourself is not going to help you through that moment.
100%.
I also like what you say about uh, almost being permitted to lead only when you can lead yourself. And if we could only have that law, that
Yes.
rule in our society, what a difference that would make. Malik, if it's possible, I know you're on your phone and you don't have another option. So if you can just keep the phone as still as you can, I'd
Okay.
like people to enjoy this wisdom so much. I know it's difficult when you speak, your phone moves even when you think it's still, but thank you. Old
Thanks for
man,
letting me know.
yeah, old man, just anything you want to say about, you can see here's a man who really has been striving to lead himself.
Adrian and Malik, I've dedicated this old man's life to understanding essence of human being. In other words, not just gain knowledge, but to understand right at the basis. And Malik, you have uh, actually summarized a great deal of all a few dozen books I've written with Adrian as well on a subject. I love your comments, Malik. I I want you to know this this mission of ours to work and have an affinity with people like you has made such a difference to my life because it is a brutal world in many ways, as one of our people interviewed yesterday said. Uh, Malik, the golden thread that is keeping the world from going over the edge, really, are people with your confident but also humble mindset. And it is a pleasure to have an affinity with people like yourself. I personally thank you for that. It makes my life in so many ways more worthwhile as well.
Thank you.
Malik,
Thank you.
Malik, let's just talk about people a bit. We can jump back to leading self as well because I think it's so interlinked. But I've written a lot about the P's in leadership of late, and I've discovered that there are power. There's the P's of power, prestige, prosperity, or possessions. It's also performance, profits. I mean, there's so many P's in leadership, popularity, but then there's also people, purpose.
Yes.
They also start with a P. My impressions are that if I had to ask you to rank the P's, that people will be very high, if not at the very top of your list.
Well, it would actually, if I was to be my extreme self, I would say it would probably be the only thing on the list.
And then other things. So if you truly work,
Because my belief is as a leader, right? My job, first of all, is to earn the right to lead people. It's not something that I can accord myself. I'm a leader because the people who follow me agree that I'm their leader. How do I do that? For me, my role, I actually say as a leader, my role is to work myself out of a job. I must give direction, make sure everyone is facing in the same direction. I must create an environment where people are motivated, where they have the resources to do what they know how to do better than me. And when they're in flight, I should leave them alone. Right? So for me, at the end of the day, that tells me that everything I should do is about people. And all the other things, the purpose, the profit, and that, they will do it. If I do my role the way I should, they will do it. So I think for me, at the end of the day, I say it will always and forever be about people.
And hence your view about the fact that your main job is to create other leaders. We will get there, I promise you. It's one of the things that the award is for. But how do you, that creating that environment where people can flourish and be motivated and inspired? Just some thoughts on that?
That's again, let's bring in that part we started with, which said knowing yourself. So if I know myself as a leader, I'm able to say to you, like I said, that these people know better than me what to do. Right? That comes from knowing yourself. And I need to create an environment that enables people to thrive. I must listen. I must create an environment where when people do good things, we speak about it, they're congratulated. I must create an environment where people, if they're stuck or they've hit a dead end, they're happy to walk into my office and ask for help. It's not a boss zone. It's a colleague zone. So that's how I create the environment. We communicate a lot. We share information. We share successes. We deal with tough times as well in a very open manner. For me, that's the environment in which people thrive. They really do. You don't have to be looking over people's shoulders if you create that kind of environment. You create an environment where people feel trusted. Once the direction is clear, I let people try things. And even if they mess up and it doesn't work out, right? And my boss comes and says, "What happened?" And I said, "No, it's me. I told them to do it, even if I didn't.
And
And you just have to do that once or twice. And when people know that you have their back, right, they'll move mountains.
It spreads. It spreads anyway. But I mean, when you are a very people-focused leader, can it happen sometimes that some misconstrue it for weak and they try and manipulate you, or what's another word I'm looking for, that not abuse, they just take advantage of you because you really care for people? And how do you handle that if that does happen?
Well, it does. Caring for people doesn't mean you're soft all the time, right? As a parent, you care for your kids, you kill for your kids, but it doesn't mean you're soft with them all the time.
Correct.
They know exactly where the lines are. So for me, the principle is soft on people, tough on standards. That's how you prevent people from abusing. So you communicate. I say we agree on the direction. Everyone knows where we're going, what's expected of them. It has to be crystal clear, right? Then the soft on people is, now I trust you to try and do it. If you need help, you come and talk to me. My door is open. If it doesn't go well, let's sit down and have a chat about it. Let's try again. That's the soft people. But we don't compromise the standard. We know what we're supposed to achieve. We know how we're supposed to achieve it. We know how we're supposed to work with one another. You make sure those things are clear up front. So, and then afterwards, it's soft on people, tough on standards.
That makes 100% sense and full agreement. Old man, you want to say anything or ask anything?
Yes. Malik, it's been our experience that when people reflect the kind of standards you were speaking about, there's a certain humility to them. But I don't know one of them that doesn't have a quality of steel in them as well. And what I mean by that is you cannot have that steel if you don't have a certain innate confidence in who you are and your standards, your faith, and even that divine element in you. And so I'm finding more and more that people speak easily about being an authentic leader, but then often that steel is really lacking. And you get the feeling that when they're under pressure, they will bend like some politicians do, wherever the pressure goes. That's not authentic leadership. So thank you for that kind of explanation of what's been invested in your life thus far. And hence the award, quite frankly, Adrian. Yeah.
Absolutely. Malik,
Thank you.
so we talk about leading self and then leading people, and that's a large part of the organization, isn't it? But still, there is an
Yeah.
organizational element. So you obviously have been successful, more on than off when it comes to leading an entire organization. What would
Yeah.
you say about that part? And maybe it's the non-people stuff to some degree, but it also
Yeah.
encapsulates that with the people, the structures, the systems. Just give us some insights there in leading an organization successfully.
Yeah, I think that some of the things that are critical there is again, as I mentioned with people, is clarity of objective. I think you cannot over communicate the objectives, what's expected, where we're heading, why we're doing it. That that's what drives the organization. People are part of the organization, but the organization, as you said, um, I think for both, clarity of direction is one thing. The other thing that I've found important is you need to develop a skill for stakeholder management, internal and external. And yes, stakeholders are individuals, but stakeholders to the organization. Um, those those entities or individuals who can impact positively or negatively your chosen direction,
Mm.
right? You have to have a clear framework about how you deal with them. One of the things I will do when I go to a new place is after a couple of months, I try and identify who my stakeholders are. I try and identify why I think they're my stakeholders, and I try and identify how they could affect me positively or negatively. And then I try and say, well, what is it I have to do proactively to manage? So I think with organizations, one of the things that has helped me a lot is the stakeholder side internally as well. You have to observe in organizations, there's always a dynamic that is unseen. Um, and everyone tends to think power lies with those who have the senior positions. But in some organizations, power lies with people way down in the ranks.
Mm.
And you have to identify them. And those are people who I have ended up having as stakeholders who've helped me push an idea across. Sometimes an idea is much stronger in the organization when it comes from a peer, as opposed to when it comes from the CEO who, well, he's supposed to say that.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's how people think. But if my peer thinks the same way, so I think stakeholder management is absolutely critical to successful organizational leadership. I do think one of the things that also is linked to the stakeholder side that I found helps a lot is starting. I mean, nowadays everyone's talking about the social value. With ESG, everyone's talking about the social value an organization gives. It's a nice name, but I think in my past, as I've led organizations, that has always been something that is important to me. What is our position, not in terms of profit, but what is our position in terms of what value we're adding to the communities where we're operating?
Mm.
How is people's life changing because of us? That is something that if you manage it well, it can actually be better than your product and services in terms of lifting your organization.
Mm.
One of the other things that I think, and I think in our dear country, South Africa, is something I would love to see leaders understand, is that you also have to fearlessly and tirelessly defend the organization's reputation,
Yeah.
right? So if you do that, there's so many things that flow from there in terms of how you would behave, what you would do, what you wouldn't do, where you would do business, how you would do business. But from a non-people side, that's the other thing I believe is you have to fearlessly defend organizational reputation, because as a leader, you are actually a custodian of the well-being of the organization. We could call it a company, a juridic person. You are actually, it's like a child entrusted to you, and it depends on you for its success and its survival. Therefore, you have to tirelessly defend its reputation because it depends on you for that. So that has to be something that a leader is also very focused on. These are just some of the things that I think come to mind, that besides the people, for me, people are paramount, but where else do I have to keep an eye, and what else I think are components of leadership, particularly, as you said, leading organizations. Those are some of the things that I think are critical as well.
Thank you, Malik. So I know you feel passionate about this, and we'll talk a little bit about how you're doing it in the last few minutes. But how important, given the context of our world today that we find ourselves in, more and more wars looming, and just awful things happening in our society, and it doesn't seem to be heading in the right direction. How important do you think it is that we increase our efforts to generate more successful leaders? A lot of people would say they're doing that, but should we find a way to escalate that? Because all of these things hinge on good leadership.
Yeah, I think we're at an emergency phase in the world. We need to, but I think what needs to go with that is redefining or reminding ourselves of what successful or good leadership is, because I think that's the biggest part of the problem. Is it's no more an important thing. As I said at the beginning, leadership is so closely and misdirectionally tied to position.
Yeah.
Right? You look in the media, you open a magazine, someone, the way they speak or the way they write is that someone is a leader automatically because of a position they're holding. And I think that is what has opened the doors to what we're seeing. There's no question about it. We've lost the essence of what leadership is, the responsibilities that come with it. It's more just about sitting in a seat and having a position of power and personal gain, pushing personal interests or shared interests. So I think we need it like as an emergency, but we need it with a clear definition or reminder of what we're talking about as leadership, because the core reason why we are where we are is because we've become very flippant about what leadership is. Actually, when you say someone's a leader, I believe that I'm a leader only because those who I have the privilege to lead acknowledge that I am their leader. But I think in the world it's turned upside down. It's once I'm promoted to this position, I am a leader. So it's more, for me, it's more actually it's probably more of the issue of redefining leadership, because even the demands of today's world have changed.
Yeah.
The dynamics of today's world has changed, and it's probably why that gap, as I said, where we're labeling people leaders when they're not actually leaders, that's why we're in trouble, because as the world is changing and moving fast and the demands are changing, those who are in those leadership positions, we're finding less and less people are really understanding what it means to be a leader. One of the ways I like to describe leadership, to disassociate it from position, is that we do understand that you can lead, you can be a leader at any level in an organization. I believe someone who sweeps the street can be a leader, because he or she can differentiate themselves from other street sweepers by the way they do their job, by their feeling they put into it, by the value they feel they're adding, by how they behave towards others. So it's not a position thing. It's really, I come to the thing that I always say, Adrian. I say, the only compass for leadership is your heart.
I've heard you say
Yeah,
that
so
before.
we need to find people who first of all understand that when push comes to shove, it's your heart that's going to make you a good leader, and we need to
Maybe
educate them and help them and mentor them. We need lots of new leaders.
we do. Maybe one of the biggest dangers in our society, in some ways, is individuals in leadership positions who understand theoretically what leadership is, but practically, there isn't a congruence. They're not congruent to it. Now, that almost does more danger. And no one can know what leadership really is and live it perfectly because it's a high standard. We understand that. But I think a lot of leaders would say people come first, but actually back at the ranch, that's not necessarily the case. Performance comes first, or profits, or whatever else. And that is in a way understandable as well. But I mean, we've got to be careful in a world of information and so on, that everyone knows what a good leader is, and therefore it's easy to. And for many years, I've interviewed lots of leaders. For the last 20, 25 years, an old man joined me at a large part of it. But and I'd interview anyone with a title. Now we're a little bit more circumspect in who we expose to the world. We don't just want anyone on here just because they have title or position. I'm more cautious about that than before, because I want these interviews to inspire and multiply more leaders. Gosh, if we don't do that, why are we even talking to you or to the other great leaders that we're looking for? So maybe just before we look at as a final step, your leadership outside of the organization, if I can call it that, in terms of ethical and governance leadership, just how do you develop more leaders? How are you doing it, and how do you intend on doing it more intensely, maybe?
Well, at the end of the day, any organization within which I work, or I have the privilege to be a leader, I believe that mantra that I have is my job is to work myself out of a job. It necessarily implies that I have to make sure that before I can move on, there are a number of people who can well do my job. Right? They can get on with it. Whether I'm there or I'm not there, it doesn't matter to them anymore. Then I have succeeded. And if you believe that from your heart, Adrian, you can only develop leaders. I spend my time trying to identify and develop people who can replace me. And that's why I am forever thankful. One of the things that I do, I almost do it as I would say like a charity, is mentoring young leaders. And that's purely because that is what ignited my life as a leader, is that I had an absolutely amazing mentor.
Thank you to that mentor, by the way. Thank you. I wish
my charity and giving back is that I mentor people, and I don't know, I could say I'm almost rabid. I will talk to anybody at any level about anything relating to their work and how they can do things better, and how I arrived in my new role where I am now, and my executive assistant says, "Welcome, I'm your executive assistant. I'm here to help you with whatever you need." And I said, "No, I'm here to help you." He said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Because when I move from here to my next job, you're still an executive assistant, or you're not ready to do something else, then I haven't done my job." And that's what I believe. And I think it should just be something natural. You just have to. But if you're driven, I'm driven, that I need always to find people who can do my job, who can take my job. And you know what's interesting? I've never been short of a job.
There's always another one for you.
Yeah.
Old man, before we go to this last component of leading in society that Malik has been very involved with, you must just unmute quickly and then just, is there any comment you want to make?
Both Audie and Malik, um, people, life boils down to essences, which you've confirmed to Malik, and what a difference it makes if one feels committed to an essence. But in terms of how we define leaders, one of the reasons why leaders are so sensitive and how they are always criticizing each other, uh, as we find in our politics mainly, is because they are self-threatened. And when people like Malik reflects a kind of humble confidence in who and what he is. Malik, we use one of our books, we use the term, what matters most is what I think, feel, and believe about me. Meaning that no matter all the great things I say and do, what matters is the ground swell foundation really comes from me. And as you said at the beginning, this is something you are learning all the time. You have to nourish yourself every day to become that best self. So that's why people are so threatened. And the more we're at peace with how basic drivers, the more we love to serve others. And then it becomes a lifelong mission, like in your case, Mother, to
100%.
mentor people. To mentor people, yeah.
That's it. It's the only way I can. I in my 30 some years, lot of scars, lot of mistakes, lot of successes, help people get shortcuts through that. I always say that to my team is let my pain help you find the shorter way to do it. Don't go through that rough way I did. So, but the thing that drives me to do it is that I am who I am because somebody took the time to recognize that I had potential and give their time to help me realize that potential. And for me, that means my obligation is to do the same.
Malik, then you recently received an award, which is a very interesting one from the Business Ethics Network of Africa. I know there's a short word for, and they call it the Baobab Award, which is my favorite tree. We love going into Kruger. Yeah, I live next to Kruger and going and seeing the baobabs. But it's about ethical and responsible leadership in Africa, and you have championed good governance and leadership in Africa. Why?
Why not? If the simple thing that I say to myself is, okay, what kind of world do you want your kids and grandkids to live in, Malik? Remember, I talked about talking to myself. And that's what I ask myself regularly. And so there's the answer to your why. Because I want to make sure that I contribute to a world that I won't be ashamed when I'm dead and buried. My kids won't be cursing me about what I left behind.
We got work to do, hey? We have work to do.
Big time. But I do know that people appreciate even if you're trying.
Yeah.
It's a mountain, but at the end of the day, we probably allow it to grow by saying, well, what can I do? Rather put your head down and just do whatever you can. People will appreciate it. One of the things that drives me around the ethics story is that in our dear continent, anytime you read anything in media, it will tell you that our continent is just reeling in corruption and lack of values. But you know what I find funny is that if you go into our little communities and villages and where we come from, our homes, they're so rich in values. Even now, with all the nonsense that we see, even now. And that's something that it led me to say, you know what the problem is? I actually am on the board of the Ethics Institute, and it's a lot of academics, very smart people around ethics, but I always challenge them. And I say maybe the academic approach we're taking is causing us the problem. They say, what do you mean? I said, you guys have preached and given us so many frameworks and everything. So we have organizations. Every organization now has a code of ethics, right? But there's still corruption and fraud and abuse of staff. It's still happening. And I've sat in disciplinary hearings and I've heard people say, yeah, well, what I've done is not against the code of ethics. So we create laws and rules and regulations with all our academic thought and everything. And what we've actually done is we've taught people to find the loopholes. Right? So I say there are things that people will never do at home or in their village or in their community. But you take that same person and they're in the city and they're in a job in a company and they just go wild.
Mm.
And I said, so why don't we try and find a basis of teaching ethics that goes back and looks at some of the homegrown values that drive people's behavior? Because what we're doing now is we're teaching ethics as if we're teaching it to people who have no values, or they're coming from somewhere where there are no values. And so when you're teaching them, it's probably going over their head. But if you try and find it in the context, because I've looked, every community in our country, whether it's Afrikaner, Xhosa, Zulu, everyone, I've got friends all over. And we all have some amazing homegrown values.
Yeah.
But if you look at our country, we look like people who have no values.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Yeah.
So I always say that, I say to people, I was talking to some staff the other day, customer care staff, and I said to them, if I visit your house, your home, as a visitor, or go to the village or wherever you live, how are you going to treat me when I arrive? And they say, no, like a king. The whole family comes to welcome you. I say, if there's one chair in your house, who will you give it to? Oh, you. I said, well, why do you do that? Oh, because our name, how we've treated visitors in our community, it's important. Our status, it's very important. I said, but how much do you get paid to do that? No. We do it. Those are our values. That's how we behave. And I said, but it's very strange. You are telling me you do that for free because of it's your values. But when I take you and I put you in a customer service shop and a customer walks in, you grunt at them. You're like, you don't help them. But at home, you do it so naturally for free. Now
Well,
here I put you somewhere and I pay you to do it.
that's where
And
the problem comes in.
my point is we're teaching people from the wrong angle.
Well said, Malik. I mean,
We send people the customer experience courses and they still grunt at customers. But that same person in the evening, they go home, go and visit them at their house. Wow.
strange, eh? We must just make that connection. That penny must drop. And thank you for that very, very good insight and for trying to be a balance amongst the academics. But you see, that's what this award is about. It's about leaders who are practically leading successfully. You can go and study as much as you want. You can get a lot of certificates and diplomas and degrees for knowledge recognition, but the actual successful leadership, that's what we want to reward out there, and then be inspired and learn from that. Maybe you can just end with a final comment to leaders, a very brief, succinct message.
It's a bit of a repetition of what I say, but I say, first of all, understand that to be a leader, it is accorded to you by those you have the privilege to lead. It's not your position. You can have the position, they will decide if you're their leader. And the thing you do every day when you wake up in the morning, do all the things that will help work you out of a job. And make sure that there's multiple people ready to do your job through your act. Always add value. Always add value. Test yourself. When you go home every day, I do, what value did you add today? To an individual, to the organization, to a community, to society. What value did you add today? And the most important thing is you must know why you wake up in the morning. You must try and find yourself in a leadership situation that you're doing things that are very much aligned with what makes your heart happy. Because then you will succeed.
Malik, you have added value today or tomorrow, next week, whenever we share this message, but you have added value and I look forward to sharing it. Old man, final brief parting comment.
I just add to that, Adrian. I felt that Malik has added value and confirmed his deep-rooted feelings in my heart and soul. That it is really about people and who they are. So I enjoy, well, at my age, this kind of value. Thank you for that, Malik.
Thank you so much. That was the Me Vision Academy Recognition of Successful Leadership for Malik Melamu. And that's what we have given him, this exclusive recognition of successful leadership to Malik Melamu for leading self, people, organization, and society, and successfully and also mentoring leaders in the future. Thank you so much, Malik, and we appreciate your time.
I appreciate yours, and I want to say to you and old man that I also sincerely appreciate and feel proud and honored to know people like yourselves. And you just remind us that there's still a lot of good people in this world, and we probably just need to make sure we join hands, and we shall achieve.
Thank you, Malik. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.